Well, the event of the century happened last night, apparently, and not a whole lot happened. It went exactly how we thought the result would go. We just didn't think it would go the way that it went. I'll show you what I mean. If you were on live with me last night, well, we expected this budget to pass to some degree. We just didn't know how it was going to go. I remember talking at the beginning of that show saying, all right, the budget's going to pass tonight. Spoiler alert, that's going to happen. However, it's how it's going to pass, and let's pay attention to what happens in the nuances, what happens in people's behaviors, how people decide to abstain, who decides to show up, what kind of games are being played are definitely things that you're going to need to keep an eye out for. And, well, games were played indeed. So, as it starts, you have to go through the whole Liberal caucus who vote yes in terms of the budget. Then you had Elizabeth May standing by herself saying, yes, I like the budget. So that was the yays. And then the nays came in, which was the Conservative Party. Then it was the Bloc unanimously. Then it was the NDP, all four NDP, where it's like, whoa, there's four of them. I know there's three more around here somewhere. And then you see them that they decide to abstain. Decide, I'm good, not voting. And that was what led to the vote going through. And, well, I should also mention there were 2 no-shows in the Conservative Party, which essentially acts as an abstaining as well, which allowed this budget to go through. So naturally, a lot of people were confused of like, what just happened? And we also even saw the games when we saw they were going through the list of the Conservative members, and Andrew Scheer wasn't in a seat. He was out in the lobby, waiting to see what was going to happen, to see if he needed to abstain or not. This was the plan from the get-go. The Conservatives had to put up a front saying they were opposing the budget, but didn't necessarily support us going to an election. And I think that's where the breakdown in messaging has really happened, because I saw you guys on live stream last night. I saw the chat lighten up, frustrated, let down, annoyed by what you were seeing. And I think that was a breakdown in messaging and is leading to the demoralization of a conservative base. And I'm going to be here to talk to you about all that. But welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. If you get any value from today's episode, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to grow. It helps us get to new audiences. It helps people see that there is something different than what the mainstream media has to offer. And now let's get into our first story, shall we? And our first story being, well, can't look at X. Can't look at all the drama that's been going on. It's because, well, X is down this morning, and so we're going to be going off the dome, showing a couple videos off YouTube and stuff like that. But this is going to be the show. Is we're going to be talking about going straight off the dome. No curveball, no changeup, nothing but absolute gas, and that's what we're going to be doing right now. So as I said, I saw the live chat last night. Everyone was like, what just happened? I thought we were going to get this thing voted down. I really, truly believe we were close, weren't we? We were close. And I was like, they're going to make it feel like it was close. And not going to lie, there was a lot of drama. The NDP really added to the drama, didn't they? I was like, okay, this was unnecessary, wasn't it? I was losing my mind on the live stream last night. I was like, whoa, what's happening? What's going on? Jasmine Lane was in the chat, being all caps, what is going on here? This is psychotic. And, well, then the motion passed, and everyone was in just complete disarray because it was so dramatic for no real reason. And we saw the frustration then taken out on social media. Right-wing creators getting in each other's faces, yelling at each other, blocking each other, cursing each other out. I was like, holy jumping, this is a war zone over here right now. And I found it very interesting. A lot of people on the right, specifically in the creator space, those who are engaged in social media, were expressing their frustration with the Conservative Party of Canada. The fact that they were losers. Some would say that they were called losers for people like Jean Leroux not showing up. He's quit on his constituents. All of this, right? A lot of this rhetoric was going on, and people were just genuinely confused and frustrated. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in general at this point is I don't want to be the guy who's like holier than thou, watch this, but we've seen more and more people, because of how crazy our politics have become, how divided we've become in our country, and how it's really forced a lot of people into the political space. A lot of people are new into the political space in terms of engaging more with it. And we're seeing a lot of those newbies engage online on this. And a lot of things they're seeing for the first time, some things they've seen before but don't really understand. Like, there's a lot of confusion and lack of understanding in terms of how things go. However, I think it's an interesting commentary on how much politics sucks, how it doesn't work for the everyday person, how the everyday person's like, what the frig was this for? I think what we're seeing, I think it can be two things. One is people need to understand more of how our political system works, and so that they aren't so disappointed when things like this happen. But the number two, I put a lot of fault on the parties, as well as specifically here, the Conservative Party in this case, for getting everyone's hopes up. This was some main event of the evening, pay-per-view, championship wrestling. Let's get her going, baby. Who's gonna vote tonight? Is the budget going to pass? Like, that was all the messaging. Will the budget pass? Will it not? What's gonna happen? Let's talk about it. And as well as our media was really beefing this up. And I'm like, look, and I was like, there's nothing to really hype up here, guys. We know this budget's gonna pass. What are we even doing here? What are we seriously doing here? And it led to this big letdown, disappointment when it inevitably passed. And people then started directing their frustration at the Conservative Party, some of which I think was valid, some of which very much not valid. And it all comes back down to building up people's expectations when it probably shouldn't have been in the first place. But I get it. That's politics. That's how it works. It's stupid. I really, truly, as a guy who covers politics every day, I think politics are stupid. They're necessary. They're a necessary evil in our lives. But man, the way we do things is kind of just dumb. There was so much there's a lot of performative action. There's a lot of, hey, look at us posturing, especially the question period leading into the budget. And it's just like, we all know what's going to happen here, guys. Like, why are we acting like it's going to be any different? But what I thought was very interesting, though, and I direct my focus back at different creators on social media who were expressing their frustration and thinking this whole thing was stupid and think the Conservative Party is a bunch of sellouts, they're uniparty, this, that, the other. I was like, whoa, all right, let's get after it then. Is you have to understand what's been going on. We just had an election in April. And we saw Carney push off many things after the election. He pushed off tariffs, negotiations with Trump, moved the deadline multiple times. He pushed off his budget, pushed off when it was going to be presented. And it all eventually came down to November. We still don't have any tariff deals. And, well, we finally got a budget announcement in November. And they wanted to switch things up. All right, we're now only going to present budgets in November from here on out. There's going to be no more spring budget announcements. It's going to be the opposite. So budget announcements in the fall and budget update in the spring. That's how it's going to go from here in the future. And I remember me and Reg kind of looking at each other being like, all right, this is a bit of a gameplay, isn't it? Clearly, this is a complete and utter play on the Liberals' part. Again, posturing of we're going to force you to call a Christmas election if there's ever a budget vote. We're going to force you to call a Christmas election. And that's all this was. It was one big pitfall to get the Conservatives up in a hissy because look at what happened leading up to this. They present the budget. The budget stunk. They didn't work with any parties, literally worked with nobody to get their budget passed, which was the goal of the governing party. That's what they're supposed to do. Is like, all right, this is what we're presenting. You don't like it? Okay, well, if we do this, if we tweak this? There was none of that. This was all one big ploy by the Liberal Party of Canada to get an election. They wanted an election so badly that they wanted to frame the opposition parties in the process to get them to vote this budget down. That's why the budget lacked thought. That's why this budget stunk. But then again, I look at what's going on in politics. Our political parties all posturing as if something big was going to happen last night, and it never was going to. And I think that's also a fault of our political class. And the people that were so frustrated, annoyed, the same people that were really frustrated and annoyed saying, uniparty, these guys are sellouts, blah, 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 are the same people who point and laugh at the Democrat Party in the United States who have extreme TDS and fall over themselves over this man even breathing. That it's so easy for Trump to get them caught up in their own words. It's so easy for Trump to set up pitfalls for them. It's so easy for Trump to set up traps for them because their TDS is so predictable. And the Liberals tried to do the same thing to the Conservatives last night. And the Conservatives didn't bite. Because look what's going on. Carney and Poilievre are in a dead heat. Best case scenario. Say we do go to an election at Christmas. We're back in the same position we were. Minority government. either for the Liberals or for the Conservatives. Either way, no one's moving anything. Or worst case scenario, people get so ticked off, the CBC goes in full frame job, frames that on the Conservatives that they're the reason you're going to the polls, and people vote ticked off and give Liberals a majority. Then Bill C-8 comes in. Then Bill C-3 comes in. Then all the policing of your speech comes in. Then you don't get to complain on X anymore because, well, you're not allowed to, because you delivered the Liberals a majority because you fell for their stupid little trap. You have to check your emotions. You have to look at the facts. You need to breathe and relax. People saying, well, this stupid budget, it's going to drain our country. You're right. If you give them 4 years to run at it, yes, it definitely will. But give them 6 months to run at it. Minimize the damage. Then let's go to the polls in 6 to 9 months from now. That's going to look a lot different. And that's the play at the moment. Because let's be honest. François-Philippe Champagne, after last night, being interviewed.
What matters today is that, people decided to, parliamentarians, though they voted in favor, they decided to put Canada first. And that's really what matters.
Does that look like a guy who wanted the budget to pass? This guy looks depressed. Look how excited he was on budget day. Yeah, let's go, budget. I'm sad that it passed. I presented the budget. Sad that it passed. Budget passed. Budget passed. Does that look like a guy who wanted it to pass? No. They wanted that budget voted down. That's why they didn't work with any parties. That's why they kept pushing divisive rhetoric. That's why they didn't want to work with anybody. Because they want to get everyone ticked off at them and get them to vote this budget down. Because they want a majority. They want a majority. Duh. Welcome to politics. Why do you think they've been trying to scrape MPs from the Conservative Party to form a fake majority? That's what they're trying to do. So it's either we want an election so we can get a majority, or we can scrape MPs, try to form a majority. Either way, we're trying to get a majority here. That's why he's so sad. He was depressed talking about that. So Conservatives didn't give what the Liberals wanted, an election. Liberals wanted an election so bad, they just wanted the Conservatives to be the ones who trip it up so that they can frame them as the ones who want an election and do what they do best, put the propaganda machine in full swing and get everyone hating Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. But it didn't work. They're depressed it didn't work because now they actually have to go and govern. They weren't planning on actually governing with this budget. Now they have to. And everyone's going to start hating them now because, well, it's all going to fall short and things are going to start coming to fruition. They have their budget. Everything's in place. Tariff deals are not going to happen with Trump. Things are only going to get worse. Trust me, based on what we're seeing. I don't want them to get worse, but it's just the reality we have to live with now. And people are going to start turning on Carney very quickly. As I said, I predicted the day of election that we would see, and we'd be back at the polls in 12 to 18 months. Well, we're 6 to 9 months away from that now. So it's okay. Life's going to go on. And we don't give the Liberals a majority where they can govern for 4 years, making things drastically worse. But anyways, enjoy your day. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.